The scent of rain-soaked earth and blooming frangipani filled my car, a familiar perfume that usually calmed me after a long day at the architecture firm. But as I turned onto my street, my phone buzzed incessantly on the passenger seat, cutting through the soothing melody of the radio. The screen flashed. Evelyn. A smile touched my lips, probably calling to gossip about her latest interior design project, or to finalize our plans for the weekend. We'd been doing this since we were 15, when we were assigned as lab partners and discovered a bond more potent than any compound we were forced to study. She was the vibrant, artistic soul to my more structured, logical self. We'd seen each other through university, first loves, heartbreaks, and ultimately, stood as each other's maid of honor. I pulled into my driveway, killing the engine before answering. Hey you. I was just thinking about you. Should I pick up that wine for tomorrow or are you? The sound that came through the speaker was not Evelyn's voice. It was a shattered, guttural thing, a raw exhalation of pure pain that made my blood run cold. Sarah. She choked, my name a broken plea. Evelyn? What's wrong? Are you hurt? My mind raced, picturing a car accident, a fall. Can you come home? You're home. I'm outside. Outside my house? Evelyn, what's going on? But the line was already dead. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the car. There, huddled on my front porch step, soaked by the drizzle she hadn't bothered to escape, was my best friend. She was curled into a ball, her arms wrapped around herself as if holding her own broken pieces together. Her luxurious chestnut brown weave was plastered to her scalp, and her elegant designer dress was wrinkled and damp. Evelyn. I rushed to her, my heels clicking frantically on the wet pavement. She looked up, and the devastation in her eyes was a physical blow. This wasn't the confident, vibrant woman who commanded rooms and turned heads. This was a ghost. Hee, she tried, but the words were lost in a fresh wave of sobs that shook her entire frame. Shua, come on inside. You're freezing. I helped her up, her body limp and uncoordinated. I fumbled with my keys, my own hands trembling now, and guided her into the warmth and light of our home. I sat her on the plush velvet sofa where we'd spent countless evenings laughing and watching movies. I fetched a thick, soft blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders, then knelt before her, taking her ice-cold hands in mine. Talk to me, darling. What happened? Is it Clifford? The name unleashed the torrent. It's over, Sarah. It's all over. Her voice was a ragged whisper. I came home early from the boutique. I had a headache. The house was quiet. I thought he was at work. She took a shuddering breath, her eyes fixed on a point in the distance, replaying the horror. I went upstairs to lie down, and there they were. In our bed. In the bed my mother bought for us as a wedding gift. A cold dread seeped into my bones. Who, Evelyn? Her gaze snapped back to mine, filled with a humiliation so profound it made my heart ache. Grace. She spat the name out like poison. My maid. The one I gave my old clothes to. The one I paid for her mother's hospital bills. He was with Grace. The image she painted was vile, intimate, and brutal. The betrayal was twofold. Not just the infidelity, but the utter contempt the choice of partner displayed. I pulled her into a tight hug as she cried uncontrollably, her tears soaking through my silk blouse. I hugged him in those sheets this morning, Sarah. Kissed him goodbye. And he had been with her in that same bed. The scent of her cheap perfume was still on his skin, mixed with mine. I think I'm going to be sick. I held her tighter, my own eyes stinging with tears for her pain. Calm down, darling. You'll be fine. I'm here. I've got you. The words were a mantra, a lifeline I was trying to throw to a drowning woman. When her sobs subsided into hiccuping breaths, she pulled back, her expression hardening through the tears. I'm not going back to that house. I'm not. I'll divorce him. I'll take everything from him. This was the Evelyn I knew, a fighter. But the fire in her eyes was fueled by hurt, not strength, and I feared it would burn out quickly. My mind raced. She couldn't go to her parents. They would only lecture her about the sanctity of marriage. She needed a sanctuary. She needed me. You'll stay here, I said, the decision firm and immediate. Let me speak with David. You can have the guest room for as long as you need. Just to catch your breath, to heal. Maybe Maybe you two can still sort things out later, but for now this is your home." The relief that washed over her face was so complete it was heartbreaking. She collapsed against me again. "Thank you, Sarah. You're the only good thing I have right now. The only one who understands." In that moment, filled with righteous fury and sisterly love, I believed I was doing the right thing. I was being the steadfast friend, the anchor in her storm. I had no way of knowing that the storm I was welcoming into my home wasn't passing through. It was settling in, and it was about to make landfall, destined to obliterate everything in its path, starting with the very foundation of the safe harbor I had so foolishly offered. Later that night, on a video call with David, who was away on a week-long business trip, I explained the situation. His face, pixelated on the screen, was etched with clear displeasure. "Evelyn? Staying with us?" he asked, his voice tight. "Why can't she go to her family? Her parents live in the city." "David, please," I pleaded, keeping my voice low so Evelyn wouldn't hear. "She's devastated. Clifford cheated with the house help. Can you imagine the humiliation? She just needs a safe space. It's just for a short time. You're not even back yet. She might have found some clarity and left before you return." He sighed, the long-suffering sigh of a man who felt his dominion was being challenged. "Fine, Sarah. You and your big heart. But let's not make this a long-term arrangement. I value our privacy, our peace. I know, my love. Thank you." I blew him a kiss, grateful for his reluctant acquiescence. I chalked his reaction up to a man's inherent dislike for disruption. I failed to see it for what it was, the first warning sign. The next few days were a cycle of tears, ice cream, and furious rants against all men. I listened, I counseled, I held her. I called into work, citing a family emergency. Clifford called relentlessly. I could hear his pleading voice through the phone, but Evelyn would just set her jaw and decline the call. "He's sorry, Evelyn," I'd say gently. "Maybe you should just hear him out." "Sorry," she'd snap, her eyes flashing. "He's not sorry he did it, Sarah. He's sorry he got caught. I need him to suffer. I need him to truly feel what he's lost." I didn't realize then that her desire to make Clifford feel his loss was quietly morphing into a desire to acquire what I had. A week later, David returned. I was eager to have him back, to feel the equilibrium of our home restored. I'd cooked his favorite meal, and the house was spotless. When he walked in, dropping his luggage and sweeping me into a warm, familiar hug, I felt a surge of love and security. Over his shoulder, I saw Evelyn watching us from the hallway. The look on her face was unreadable. At dinner, David presented me with a small velvet box. "A little something I saw and thought of you," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, its charm a tiny, intricately designed compass. "It's beautiful," I breathed. "So you'll always find your way back to me," he said, clasping it around my wrist. It was a romantic, thoughtful gesture, one that solidified the picture of our happy marriage. I caught Evelyn's expression then. It wasn't just appreciation. It was a deep, covetous yearning. Her smile was tight. "Clifford never remembers our anniversary, let alone gets me just because gifts," she said, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that felt sharp. "You're so lucky, Sarah. I wish I were you. I wish I had a David." I laughed it off, my cheeks flushing with a mix of pride and embarrassment. "Oh, stop it. He's just being himself." David, however, didn't downplay it. He seemed to puff out his chest slightly, a smirk playing on his lips. "A man should cherish his wife," he said, his gaze lingering on me before flicking to Evelyn. "It's the bare minimum." That was the moment the seed was planted. I saw it take root in Evelyn's eyes. The envy wasn't a passive emotion anymore. It was a catalyst. The unwelcome shift. The change was slow, insidious, like a vine creeping up a wall, its growth almost imperceptible until it has choked the entire structure. Evelyn began her campaign of subtle infiltration. She was always there, a little too helpful, a little too present. She started waking up earlier than me to make breakfast. I'd walk into the kitchen to find her at the stove, wearing one of her silk kimonos, flipping pancakes or making an elaborate omelet. "You're cooking?" David asked one morning, his surprise evident. She turned, offering him a smile that was both demure and radiant. "Yes, David. I notice Sarah is always rushing for her morning meetings. I just wanted to help. Oh, she actually loves to cook, David corrected, though he returned her smile easily. But I don't want her stressing herself. Thank you though, Evelyn. I stood in the doorway a silent observer. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. David. Not sir. And he hadn't corrected her. I dismissed the thought. I was being silly, paranoid. She was just being kind. Then came the ride-sharing. Their offices were in the same business district. It's no trouble, Sarah, David said when he proposed it. Saves her the Uber fare while she's going through all this. It's the least I can do. The least he could do. I pushed down my unease and agreed. Gradually, I noticed their comfort with each other evolve into something more. Their goodbye at the car in the mornings became prolonged. I'd watch from the window as she'd laugh, throwing her head back at something he said. Her hand resting on his forearm for a beat too long. He'd smile, a relaxed, easy smile I hadn't seen him give anyone but me. Our dinner conversations began to pivot. Evelyn would steer topics towards David's work, his opinions, his achievements. She'd hang on his every word, while my contributions felt increasingly peripheral. One evening, I voiced my discomfort to David as we got ready for bed. Don't you think she's getting a little too comfortable? He turned from the mirror, his expression one of mild annoyance. Sarah, don't be ridiculous. The woman is heartbroken. She's just seeking stable male companionship. It's innocent. You're reading too much into it. Don't be that jealous wife. The phrase jealous wife was a masterstroke. It made me feel small, irrational, and petty. I bit my tongue, convinced I was indeed imagining things. 2 months slipped by. The guest room had begun to look permanently lived in. Clifford's calls had evolved from begging to angry to desperate. Each time I'd counsel Evelyn to find a path to forgiveness, or at least closure. He's your husband, Evelyn. You vowed for better or worse. This is the worse, Sarah, she'd retort, her eyes hardening. And I need him to stew in it. I need him to truly understand what he's lost. But it wasn't Clifford she was making understand what he'd lost. It was me. She had no intention of leaving. The healing had become a permanent residency. The knot in my stomach was now a permanent resident, too. Frustration and a gnawing fear finally pushed me to action. One afternoon while Evelyn was out, I called Clifford. You need to come and get your wife, I said, my voice firm with a resolve I hadn't felt in weeks. Today. She's not healing here, she's festering. He arrived within the hour, looking haggard and remorseful. But when he stood at my door, pleading with Evelyn to come home, she looked at him with utter contempt. I'm not going anywhere with you, Clifford. We're done. It's over. What happened next shattered the last vestiges of my naivety. My husband, David, stepped forward. He placed a reassuring hand on the small of Evelyn's back. A gesture that felt intimate, proprietary, a claim staked. Clifford, I think you should leave, David said. His voice calm but laced with a steel I'd never heard him use with anyone but me. Give her more time. She's been through a lot. I'll talk to her myself. I'll talk to her myself. The words echoed in the silent hallway, each one a nail in the coffin of my trust. Since when was he her spokesperson? Since when was her emotional state his personal project? I stood there, mute and stunned, as Clifford's gaze shifted from Evelyn to David, and finally to me. The look he gave me was not of gratitude, but of pure, unadulterated venom. He saw what I was still refusing to acknowledge. You're a fool, Sarah. He spat before turning and storming out of my house, out of our lives. The door slammed shut, the sound final and ominous. The three of us stood in the lingering silence. Evelyn let out a shaky breath, leaning into David's side. Thank you, David, she whispered. He gave her shoulder a squeeze. It's all right. You're safe here. I was a ghost in my own home. A week later, Evelyn announced she was leaving. She packed her bags, hugged me tightly and thanked me for everything. I'm going to stay with a cousin for a bit, she said, her eyes avoiding mine. I need to be completely alone to think. A wave of relief so powerful it made me dizzy washed over me. The intruder was leaving. The vine was being cut away. My home, my marriage would be mine again. I could repair the damage I had surely imagined. For a week, peace returned. David and I reconnected. We had romantic, candlelit dinners where we talked about our future, about the vacation we'd been planning, about maybe starting to try for a baby again. The shadow of Evelyn seemed to lift, and the man I fell in love with was back, his attention fully on me. We laughed more. We made love with a passion that had been dormant for weeks. I convinced myself I had created the tension in my own mind, that my friendship had weathered a strange storm, and my marriage was stronger for it. David was attentive, sweet, and present. He even started a small renovation project in the backyard, something he'd been putting off for months. For us, he'd said, kissing my forehead, so we can have our own little paradise. I basked in it. I ignored the tiny nagging voice that wondered why he'd been so resistant to Evelyn leaving if all was now so perfect. I silenced it with thoughts of our future. Then one evening the illusion was shattered with the violent ringing of my phone. It was Clifford. But it wasn't the contrite man from before. This was a voice frayed with rage and bitterness, teetering on the edge of sanity. "You!" he screamed into the phone. The sound so violent I flinched and pulled the phone away from my ear. "You destroyed my marriage, you stupid, naive witch." "Clifford, what are you talking about? I tried to help. I tried to get her to go back to you." "Help? You housed the serpent and let her poison your own garden, you fool. She's pregnant. She's carrying your husband's child. Your precious David." The world tilted on its axis. The floor beneath my feet seemed to liquefy. I gripped the kitchen counter for support, my breath catching in my throat. The compass bracelet on my wrist felt like a lead weight. That's not possible," I whispered, my whole body trembling violently. "You're lying. You're just angry." "Am I?" he hissed, the sound cold and triumphant in its misery. "Then go see for yourself. Go to the address I'm sending you. He's with her right now." "He told you he was on a business trip to Lagos, didn't he?" The text came through with a ping that sounded like a gunshot in the silent kitchen. An address in a mid-range apartment complex in the neighboring town. The same apartment David had supposedly helped a colleague find last month. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. This couldn't be happening. I don't remember driving. I remember a blur of streetlights and the frantic, erratic hammering of my own heart. I remember the cold sweat on my palms as I gripped the steering wheel. I parked a distance away, my body moving on autopilot, numb with a dread so profound it was paralyzing. And then I saw them. They were walking towards the apartment building, hand in hand like any young, happy couple returning home for the evening. David was carrying 2 bags of groceries. Evelyn was laughing, her head thrown back in genuine amusement, one hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach in a gesture that was both unconscious and fiercely possessive. She glowed with a contented, settled happiness I hadn't seen on her in years. A happiness that eclipsed even her pre-Clifford bliss. My husband. My best friend. The man who had clasped a compass to my wrist, so I would always find my way back to him, was now carrying groceries for his pregnant mistress. The woman I had sheltered from the storm was carrying his child. His first child, the one we had been trying for, the one he told me not to worry about, that it would happen in God's time, that we shouldn't rush it. The world didn't just shatter. It vaporized. Every shared laugh, every whispered dream, every "I love you," every quiet evening on this very sofa, it all curdled into one grotesque, meticulously constructed lie. The vineyard, the rekindled passion, the backyard paradise. It was all a cover. A performance to keep me placated while he built a secret life. I leaned against my car, the cold metal seeping through my clothes, but it was nothing compared to the glacial ice forming around my heart. They saw me before I could move, before I could even process the need to flee or confront. Evelyn's smile vanished, replaced by a mask of feigned shock that didn't quite reach her eyes. In that fleeting, unguarded moment, I saw a flicker of triumph. David's face went ashen, the groceries nearly slipping from his grasp. "Sarah," he breathed, his voice barely a whisper, taking a step towards me. I didn't wait for the lies, for the excuses, for the theatrics. I turned, my movements mechanical, got into my car and drove away. I saw him in my rearview mirror, standing frozen on the sidewalk, while Evelyn placed a hand on his arm, pulling him back towards their home, their future, their child. My phone started ringing before I'd even turned the corner. "David." I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. The messages started pouring in, each notification a fresh stab. "Sarah, please answer. It's not what you think. It was a mistake. A moment of weakness. The devil played with my head. She seduced me when I was vulnerable, when I was trying to comfort her. Please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I love you. And then the final message, the one that sealed our fate, that confirmed the absolute death of our marriage. But the baby, Sarah, it's my first child. It's innocent. I can't abandon my flesh and blood. We have to find a way to make this work for everyone. For everyone. Meaning he wanted to keep her. He wanted to have his wife and his mistress and his child under some twisted arrangement. The audacity of it, the sheer unmitigated gall, was a physical blow that stole the air from my lungs. I couldn't take it. So I left. I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city, the kind of place where no one asks questions. I packed a bag in a blind haze, turned off my phone, and checked in under a false name. The silence of the sterile, anonymous room was deafening, broken only by the echoes of their laughter and the ghost of Evelyn's sobs on my sofa. That was 3 months ago. The compass bracelet sits at the bottom of a river now, where it belongs. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman, is handling the divorce. David is fighting it, still sending emails about devil's work and forgiveness, while simultaneously setting up a nursery in the apartment with Evelyn. I heard through the grapevine that they are the talk of the town. The scandalous couple who found love in the ashes of their respective marriages. People pity me, but some, I know, secretly admire their passion. I don't pity myself anymore. The pain has been fire-forged into a cold, hard resolve. Sometimes I still see it all when I close my eyes. The rain on her face, the groceries in his hand, her possessive touch on her stomach. But the image is losing its power to wound. That's how my best friend, the same woman I took in to heal from her own shattered marriage, systematically dismantled mine. She didn't just burn my house down. She salted the earth so nothing could ever grow there again. She saw the light in my home and instead of basking in its warmth, she decided to blow out my flame so she could have the candle for herself. Sometimes the devil doesn't come with horns and a pitchfork. He comes to your door crying, with a suitcase in his hand and a heart full of envy. And the person who holds the door open for him is the husband you thought was your shelter from the storm. And in the end, you are left with only the ashes, and the bitter, hard-won knowledge that the only person you can truly trust to rebuild is yourself.
Thanks for watching. Click the subscribe button below to subscribe to our channel. Beyond All Stories, for more fascinating, interesting, suspenseful and emotional stories.